I was on the fifth floor in our office. I was at my desk. Um, don't know exactly when the letter was opened, right around 10 o'clock, but I do remember distinctly going to go up to the mailroom to deliver some correspondence from a constituent, and being stopped. I said, "Nope, you can't go upstairs. A letter's been opened." And going back and telling some of my other coworkers, "Yeah, I can't go upstairs." And at the time, we're thinking, "Oh, another hoax. We'll just wait it out." So we're all sitting at our desks, just going about our day. And I can't remember exactly when or who told us that it had come back positive. But I do remember watching the news, and that morning President Bush had a press conference, and because anthrax had been in the news about the other attacks, the letters that had gone around, he was asked about it. And I can't remember exactly what the question was, is whether he was concerned about Washington. And President Bush came out and said, "Well, I just got off the phone with Leader Daschle, and a letter containing anthrax was opened in his office." So a lot of us hadn't even had a chance to inform our parents what had happened, and the president announced it to the nation. So from that moment on, the press was camped up outside our front door for the rest of the day. One thing that was clear is everyone on the sixth floor where the letter was opened, they were immediately quarantined and evacuated. They didn't do anything about us on the fifth floor. We sat there until about 3 o'clock. They ordered pizza. The pizza guy made it past the police line, and he wound up going on antibiotics. And we all got our nasal swabs done, which is as pleasant as it sounds. And that's when we found out that 28 of us had tested positive for anthrax. And then we all were stunned. And then it was later on when Dr. Greg Martin, who is a disease specialist at Bethesda Naval Hospital, he talked to us. One of the things he said, which really sticks in my mind, is just because your nasal swab was negative for anthrax spores doesn't mean you didn't inhale anthrax. Mine was negative. I had a cold that day. I blew my nose several times. They basically said, if it's not in your nose, it's in your lungs. We have no way of knowing who inhaled what and how much. When it was all said and done, one of the things that he said later, when we were all treated and back in our offices, that they found more anthrax in our noses than they found in entire buildings. It was pretty harrowing. But again, we survived because we knew what we had from the beginning. We all started a course of Cipro on that Wednesday. Every single one of us, negative and positive, it didn't matter. We'd all inhaled lethal doses of anthrax.
So out of your group, out of the 28 who did test positive, did anything happen to anybody?
None of us got sick. It was pretty much a miracle, I think. At the time, they didn't really know what antibiotics would treat it, because nothing was FDA approved for inhalation anthrax, because you can't do the human trials that are necessary to prove that it actually treats it. And so they said, well, we think this is what will work. But now, on a box of Cipro or Levaquin, it actually says FDA approved for the treatment of inhalation anthrax.
Crazy.
It's very crazy.
Mm-hmm.
2 postal workers that handled the letter at the facility where the letter had gone through, they died a week later after our attack. So I think it was at the time, nobody really knew how far this thing was going to spread. They were very insistent that there's no way the spores could have leaked through the envelope. But they did. They contaminated that entire postal facility. I actually got to meet the son of one of the gentlemen that had passed away a year ago. And, I feel that they are the unsung heroes of this whole thing. It's like they died and they didn't have to. And I think it was another gentleman that worked with them. He went to see his doctor. The 2 gentlemen that died, their doctor said, you have the flu, go home, because anthrax infection mimics the flu. Another gentleman in Virginia went to the same doctor. That doctor ran a blood test and found anthrax in his body and flooded him with antibiotics. He survived. His friends did not. I think so. It's a case where we knew immediately that there was anthrax in that office. These other gentlemen, there was no way of knowing that they had been exposed to anthrax. The gentleman at the National Enquirer, he was already too far gone with infection before they realized that it was anthrax. His actual death from anthrax is what led them to know that he had anthrax in a letter. They never found a letter at the National Enquirer. They found these letters at the NBC after somebody contracted a skin lesion from anthrax. So a lot of it was the infection showed up before they knew the anthrax existed. They caught our letter before the infections ever occurred, and so they were able to hit it ahead of time.
So how long did you work for Daschle after this?
I worked right up until he lost re-election in 2004. I came up, moved back to South Dakota in about 2005. And prior to that, my girlfriend at the time, Shannon, had told me about this job opportunity at Basin Electric, and I had applied, and they offered me a job. So I moved to Bismarck. It's actually kind of an interesting full circle event, because right after the attacks, our offices were closed. So I was already in Rapid City, so I worked in the state office. So I got my flights changed, and my dad, fortunately, is a physician's assistant. He was able to get me a quick script for Cipro, so I wouldn't miss my dosages. And worked in South Dakota for a few weeks, which happened to coincide with the groundbreaking or the unveiling of Basin Electric's first wind turbines in Chamberlain, in conjunction with East River. And Senator Daschle had been invited to speak. A statement had been written, and everybody else that was in the state that was going to go wound up couldn't go. So I got picked. So I wound up going to the unveiling and speaking on behalf of the senator at the unveiling. That was actually my first introduction to Basin Electric.